Good afternoon, class. In this video, I'm going to go over our Topic 1 assignment, Inquiry-Based Strategies chart. For this assignment, you're going to be working on the chart that's provided within our assignment description here that's linked at the bottom. You're going to grab this chart and open it up. And when you do this, you're going to see that there are two separate tables that you need to fill out. One table you're going to choose a science standard on, and the other table you're going to choose a health standard on. For the video, I'm going to do a quick demonstration with a science standard that I've already posted a little bit about in our discussion forum. So I'm going to choose a grade level, and then I'm going to select a standard for that grade level. Now, I do want to warn you that with the science standards, this is the probably the subject I see the most mistakes when people are trying to choose their science standard and they accidentally say, I'm going to teach first grade, and then they throw in a second grade or a kindergarten standard in there, and they don't realize that they chose a standard that's not for that grade. So if you'd like, you can start with content and try to look for which grade has that content, or choose a grade level first and find a standard within that grade level. So when I am looking for a standard on the NGSS website, you can just go to this read the standards. And when you're here, you can choose if you want to filter by grade, you can choose, I just want to see first grade, and that's all I want to look at. Or you can decide, I want to go within a discipline or an idea and find something around that. For example, you might say, I want to find something around, I don't know, ecosystems or something like that. And then they'll show you the grades that they fall under, or the stars in the solar system. I really like the solar system. So if you click that and hit submit, you'll see there are standards here. When I look at the standards, that first code, that first either number or letter sequence indicates its grade level. So I can easily look at this and go, ooh, I want to do space because space is interesting to me. And I have first grade standard or a fifth grade standard or a middle school standard. So I can't put second grade on my chart because there are no second grade standards for this. Once you find those standards that you want to use, like I have identified here, you'll see this page. Now, I know some states don't use NGSS. A lot of states use standards that look very similar to NGSS, though, even if it's not this. For example, in Arizona, we don't use NGSS, but we do have the three-dimensional science, and we have these disciplinary core ideas. We embed the science and engineering practices and the cross-cutting concepts. And so you'll see that embedded throughout most state standards. Now, when I'm looking at my standard, this here is my standard, this black text and this coding. I like to see both of these things on every assignment you turn in that asks for a standard. Because one, I can identify if you've accidentally given a standard for a different grade level. And then two, I can look at if it's physical science, or it helps me look up your standard, especially for states that have different coding systems. All right, so I'm going to open up that strategies chart. And when I do so, I'm going to plop in that this is a first grade standard, and I'm going to put my state standard, just copy and paste it right in. Once you do that, I want you to think about your state standard as a large learning goal that encompasses many days of instruction. And so what we have to do is we have to break down a standard into smaller chunks of learning, and that's our learning targets. And so what are we going to learn on this one day is what we ask ourselves as we're creating learning targets. So what's our goal for one day of instruction? Sometimes understanding the standards requires that we read them and we think about them, and we sometimes even go and look up about the standards. On this standard, it says plan and conduct investigations to provide evidence that vibrating materials can make sound and that sound can make materials vibrate. So when I read this, not only there's a lot of different things that students are doing. Students have to plan investigations, then they need to conduct investigations, and then they also need to find evidence that it's vibration that creates sound, but also when there is sound, it can vibrate other things as well. And so this can happen over multiple days. What students aren't doing is opening up a textbook and reading sound is created by vibrations. Students are to discover this idea rather than read about it or be told that sound is created from vibrations. And that's the essence of this standard. I taught sound when I was teaching third grade, and we would get out a lot of different materials like I got together some rulers. I went to my music teacher and asked for a few like symbols or different, like a triangle and um, different things that would make sound. You don't have to go to your music teacher, but you can get even just basic things like maracas or beans in a jar or anything that you can use to have students produce sound. On this date, I've decided this is going to be the beginning of my unit. So students are going to explore sound using various materials and record what they hear, see, hear, and feel. So I'm going to have them record those three things. What do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel? And try to describe it using their senses. So that's the learning target I chose. Now, there would be other days where maybe they would be planning their own investigation, where they'd be seeing how materials are vibrating other things. But this is one day in time. So you're going to choose two inquiry-based strategies, and you want to choose something that you've read about, something that you can find a scholarly resource to support that choice. For example, in this, I'm having students do an inquiry experience. And it could be titled something else based on your article. That's up to you. But I need to explain what do you mean by an inquiry experience? So that would be my strategy, but explain what it is. So I'm going to have students choose 3 items from the sound box with all the different things I put in there. They will explore how the item makes sound. And I'm going to just kind of summarize just a little. They'll collect data using a chart to show what they see, etc. So you can see I would explain so that I can understand the strategy that you chose, explain what it looks like in action, so I can really understand what strategy you're trying to explain. And then here, give me that rationale, support it with scholarly sources. Why is this a good strategy to teach this standard and for this learning target at this point in time? And so I might explain how students learn through inquiry experiences. I'm going to cite my references, where I get my information, and then explain how in this inquiry experience, students are exploring that those vibrations are there. And I'm going to hope to get them to notice these patterns with vibrations. Another tip as you're thinking about looking at the inquiry experience or inquiry strategies, if you're not sure where to go with your standard, it's okay to do a little Google search, look up your standard, see what other people have planned around this standard, and then also look at some of these other parts to our standards. So here, your cross-cutting concepts are kind of how students think about the science that they're seeing. And with this standard, cause and effect is the cross-cutting concepts, so that students can do simple tests to design and gather evidence, and they can either support or refute ideas. So every time I made sound, I noticed or I felt a moving or a shaking. I noticed that. And so then you'd be like, so what do you think? What do you think that moving or shaking has to do with the sound creation? And I would take them through thinking about it and coming up, okay, well, prove it to me. Everything, go grab a few more things out of the box. Can you, when you use those things, does it happen there too? And then they can tell you exactly, yes, everything I felt moving or shaking, I think this is what causes sound, and they can make a claim. And that's part of some of those science and engineering practices. They're planning out and carrying this investigation, but then they're also gathering that evidence and they're supporting it. And other students could refute it, and you could have a really good debate in your classroom. So when you're looking at this assignment, it's all about just taking a standard, breaking it down into one day of instruction with that measurable learning target. And then you're going to choose two strategies to support that. You also want to explain those strategies so I can understand them. Don't just put the title of them. And then give me a rationale on why it is important. Don't forget, the second one should be a health standard and then support everything with scholarly resources. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about this week's assignment.